your host, Tanya Ricketts. And joining me this evening are Effie Altamori and Sophie Adosho. And we will be discussing tonight the way we speak to ourselves. I like this topic because oftentimes we go through life and we kind of think to ourselves that the way we speak to ourselves and the way we're speaking to others match, and oftentimes they don't. So tonight, I'm hoping to bring out and demonstrate to you guys just how different it really is and what we can do to change the internal dialogue to have a healthier one. So welcome both my guests this evening with me, Effie and Sophie. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so I know that the three of us have had pretty interesting discussions on what it means to when you guys had your little aha moments is when you realized that you were speaking to yourself differently than on the inside than what you were speaking on the outside. And oftentimes it's so easy for that to happen with us. So Sophie, I'm just going to really ask you and start with you. Just when did your aha moment happen when you started to realize that your internal dialogue and your external dialogue just weren't matching and meeting up?
Well, for me, to be honest, for the longest time, it was like, you know how sometimes we hear certain things and we try to believe it's true, but we never put them into practice, right?
Right.
So when I basically and I would always be saying, I don't have money, I don't have money, I don't have money. But then one day it came and I said to myself, well, you know what, even if I don't have money, let me just say, I have the money. It's so funny, but the moment I did that, to be honest, it seems something automatically shifted in me. And it's so true. I start seeing the money coming in, and I was and I thought to myself, if it was this easy, why was I not doing this before?
Right. And why do you think that is? Why do you think that you weren't doing it before?
Well, sometimes we hear it, like I said, but we don't do it. But then it took me time, so I start reading. So the moment I start reading it, and for me, to be honest, I'm a bit more spiritual. So when I read it in the Bible, and it kept on saying, wherever you speak, that's what you would see, right? And then I said to myself, okay, I got to change the way I'm speaking to myself. And the moment I changed the way I was talking to me, things start shifted. And even simplest thing, for example, I'll be talking with people like customers or people out there. And every time I would in my own talk, I would say, oh my God, they're lovely people. Everybody would be lovely people. And then to be honest, I always see lovely people.
Right. Because whatever we perceive on the inside is going to come out in our words. And that internal dialogue really does help shape our reality. So Effie, and what did that look like for you?
Well, I have to be honest, growing up and in my entire life, I've always been a very positive person. At some point in my life, I had a few, I guess, kind of moments that taught me that life isn't always great. And that's when I started to change the way the words were in my head and what I was actually thinking. And I don't think I realized that until a moment in my life when I said, I'm saying words, but I'm not thinking those words. So I know what I'm supposed to say, but I'm not actually saying that to myself. So I started to retrain the way that I thought and the way that I spoke so that they could coincide and match. So if I felt that I was saying this out loud, I needed to say it to myself as well. I mean, not just relating to money, it's just about how I expect to be treated, how I treat others, and the positive ways to influence myself and my life is the way that I choose to think. For example, when I say that I'd like to do something and it seems to be challenging, I won't say that I can't. I'll take out the negative word and I'll say, I'm going to find a way to get where I need to get.
And that's pretty big when you're looking at finding a way versus, because how many of us on the inside, we really do feel from a place of, I can't do it. It seems really big, but really being aware of it and shaping it to say, you know what, I'm going to find a way. And all of a sudden it changes that feeling on the inside and it creates a different reality on the outside.
I feel that it's not that we just need to train how we think. It doesn't just happen overnight. I mean, I don't have it down pat and I'm not a master, or I don't claim to be an expert at it. But what I do feel is that when I do catch myself saying I can't or I won't, or, I wake up every morning and I just kind of think it's going to be a great day. Whatever comes today I will be able to deal with it. So it actually just helps me set my day on a positive note and keep me grounded and focused to what exactly I'm looking to direct my life towards.
Right. And Sophie, to that you add.
Well, basically, I think I agree with Effie, to be honest, because I am the same way. Like every morning before I get up, like as soon as my eyes open, like the first thing I put into my mind, like what comes out of my mouth. So like right away, I'm always thankful and grateful for everything. And I think to myself, like, like even just talking in general, like every time that I have to say anything, I have to ensure that anything that comes out of my mouth, it has to be positive. And
Right.
if sometimes my thoughts are thinking to say negative, I choose not to say anything.
Right.
So I
It's interesting
choose to
for me.
keep it quiet. Like even
And that,
my thought may be saying, oh, you can say this, but in my own, like in my own soul, I believe it's not good thing to say, right? Like, and I know if I have to say it, I know it will come back in another way. So it's basically like, I absolutely choose not to say anything negative. That's just me.
it's a
That's what
personal
I'm doing.
choice.
Yes.
Right. Right. And it's interesting because often the way we speak to ourselves, I've found over the years of doing my own personal coaching with individuals, is the way that we've been conditioned and made to believe what we think about ourselves. We want to believe something different, but we're feeling something different. And we're going about working to, and I use the word trying, we're trying to do something different, but on the inside, we have a whole different dialogue going on and we're wondering why we're stuck.
They kind of have to parallel each other, right?
Right.
So you're saying to yourself on the outside to others, and how you're portraying yourself should actually be how you feel about yourself
On the inside, right. And a lot of times we don't feel that confident about ourselves or that good about ourselves.
And we end up attracting things in our life that are actually what we're saying to ourselves on the inside.
Absolutely.
So if you're not loving yourself or happy with yourself, or if you're being mistreating yourself in some way, you may attract those type of individuals in your life. And it's easier to allow that behavior if you're speaking to yourself that way.
Right. And that is so true. And that's so key to it all is, you are attracting based on that conversation that you're having on the inside with yourself. I always say to people, I can tell in 5 minutes what somebody's feeling on the inside. I can tell what they think about themselves. You can tell just by the way they're describing themselves, their experiences. A lot of times people use words like I can't, I won't, I'm trying. And that's what they're saying. And it feels,
I'm trying.
yeah. And when you say it, like just, really quickly, when somebody's saying they're trying to do something, I'm trying to lose 10 pounds, you're either doing it or you're not. So it's almost, setting yourself up for failure in the sense of I'm trying. Well, it's giving you an out. And inside, if you were to actually examine that feeling on the inside, you're actually from that place where you're not believing that it's possible for you to do it. So you're trying. But when you have that belief inside that I'm doing, that you can do it, you will speak for that truth. And that internal dialogue will be, well, I'm doing it because you actually believe you can do it.
I think I'm trying is a safe word. It's like maybe. So it's like, maybe I'm going to come, maybe I'm not. So depending on what happens, I'm not letting anyone down because I'm trying. So I find I'm trying for me has always been a safe word because it's made me feel okay. Like I am going to try, but if I don't do it, it's okay. Cause I'm not saying I'm doing it or I'm not, I'm saying I'm trying. So which kind of always has left me in limbo as being an undecisive person because that's what I've tried to change in my language is to be more consistent and to be more, I guess, confident in what I'm saying. Yes or no, doing or not.
So more committed to your decisions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And Tanya, I was going to add something actually based on what you just said. To be honest, for me, like sometimes I'll be talking because I work with people over the phone, right? And I'll be talking to people that I don't even know. And they will ask like whom I'm talking to. And I tell them like, you're talking with the most beautiful Sophie.
And they are.
I like
And
that.
you know,
I like it.
and you know, it's so funny, but it's like they don't even know me, and they say, "Oh yeah, we can see, we can tell you are beautiful."
Because your spirit starts to shine through. And
And
it's
I,
more than just your words. I'm sure when you're talking to them, you're smiling and they can't even see you're smiling, but they can feel that you're smiling. Right.
yeah.
And it's just that
And
that's
sometimes they say to me, "Oh yeah, we know." And I said, "But you haven't seen me. How do you know?" And they say, "No, but we can tell you are beautiful." And I always joke about it. I said, "Yeah, but listen, I may trick you. I may be beautiful from the inside, but I'm ugly from the outside." Just to And
and,
they
and
always come back and they say, "No, you're beautiful inside out." And I'm thinking to myself, that's just me thinking this way. I'm not.
well, it's funny because I'm sure that we've heard those sayings or we've seen it in reality where there are people that may not have as much talent as the next person, but it came down to the belief they had in themselves, that discussion they had with themselves, where the person that may have had maybe a skill set or a talent just that was a little bit more than somebody else. Their belief system was that they didn't have it and they didn't go very far. Where the person that may not have had as qualified of a skill set, their belief is that they're the most, phenomenal and dynamic, and they go places. And because their internal dialogue and their belief system is exactly, it matches, their results are matching what their belief system are. And I have a friend that says all the time, belief kills and belief cures. And whether you believe it's right or you believe it's wrong, you're right. Right.
That's so
Because
true. I believe in
what
that.
right. Because what you're thinking on the inside is really, and your life is as a result of the way you speak to yourself. That was a hard one for me. I don't know about you guys.
Well, for me, it was actually at one point, like I felt like family will be telling me, "Oh, you're too slow. Oh, you're too slow to learn. Oh, you're too slow to learn." And then it came a time in my life, I was kind of like, why they're telling me I'm too slow to learn? I mean, I speak four languages. If I was slow to learn, then how can I be talking four languages?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so, and at one point I start to believe what they were telling me, like I'm slow, but then I start to saying, like I kept telling myself, well, no, I don't think so, I'm slow, because if I'm slow, then I wouldn't be able to speak four languages, I wouldn't be able to read four languages, I wouldn't be able to negotiate in four languages. So if I'm slow and I'm able to do those, then let me be slow.
So it became a
if
different
this is a
dialogue.
slow, exactly, like if this is what slow
What do you
means,
mean by slow?
Then
meaning in terms of learning, like you're slow to learn, you're slow to learn,
and she's
like
fast to
you
learn. She learns four languages. She learned for four languages.
and I'm thinking, well, why are they telling me? So, like, technically, even though I was hearing it from them, but I kept saying to myself, I'm not slow. I'm amazing. I'm perfect. Even maybe, yeah, there has been moment, maybe I didn't believe it, right? But I kept saying it to a point that I start to believe it that I'm not slow. In
Right.
force of repeating it to myself, like internally repeating it to myself, I
Well, it's
started
no
to
different than
believe.
putting a child, when we put children in front of the mirror and we start that dialogue with them from an early age where we're like, you're beautiful, you're powerful, you're amazing, you're handsome.
Absolutely.
We
Absolutely.
start that dialogue early, and those children grow up to feel powerful, to be beautiful, because that's what was deposited into them in an early age. And a lot of times our internal dialogue started way before where we arrive at, where whatever was put into us are the voices and the conversations that we in the narrative and the tapes were rolling over and over again. And a lot of times we wonder why the results that we're looking for in life aren't showing up. Well, they're not showing up because that tape that was been given to us is not playing out the conversation, the feeling, or the belief that reflects what's possible for your life.
That's true.
True. So true. Very true.
And I can speak out of my own experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think we've all been there, right?
Right. And I'm still a work in progress, right? But I
We
think
all
I'm
are.
joining Sophie's camp where you know what, I can, and I am, and
But I feel that
it's,
a lot of times when you tell people like, "Oh, I'm working on this," or "I'm trying to be positive," they think like, "Oh, you're an expert. You never make mistakes." No, that's not what this is about. It is always going to be a work in process, and you're always trying to better yourself. And I'm going to slip up, and there's going to be days that I am going to talk to myself negatively or use terms that I probably wouldn't on a normal basis. But that's okay. You
yes,
pick yourself up and you start again because you know. So, I mean, it takes that expectation off that everybody's like, oh, look, she knows everything, or she knows what she's doing, or she thinks she's so much better because she's talking to who's she really talking to? Is she nuts? But, it's not about that. It's everybody's human. We all make mistakes. And the minute we stop judging each other and allowing each other to be who we are for
yes.
individually, I think it's a better place for everyone. So if I choose to wake up in the morning and talk to myself like I'm on top of the world, I'm not hurting anyone. I'm just helping myself. And if
And
I'm
that's key. That's
yeah,
huge. You're not hurting anybody by telling yourself
absolutely not.
amazing stuff.
And I'm going to choose
I,
to see the good in people, regardless of who they are. Through my eyes, I'm going to choose to try to see the good in everyone.
Yes.
to be honest, for me, in talking, it's more like I do it more in a personal level. Meaning, so for example, if I'm having a headache, simplest thing, like if I'm having a headache, and
Yeah.
instead of me saying, "Oh, I have a headache," I keep on saying to myself, "There's no room for this disease."
Oh,
Oh,
that's a
wow.
yeah,
That's a good
That's
one.
what I usually
I
do.
like that.
If I have my niece, like, sometimes I'll be playing sport and I'm having a pain in my knees, and that happened with me. So I'm basically just saying what it's happened with
Absolutely.
me. So like I at one point I remember my knee was hurting and I was working out and I kept like at one point I was saying, "Oh, it hurts, I cannot work out. Oh, it hurts, I cannot work out." But then I said, "No, no, 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 no." I start changing that. I start saying, "Oh, my, like it was still hurting. Like, don't get me wrong, it was still hurting." But I kept saying, "Oh, my knee, there's nothing wrong with my knee. There is no
Yes.
room for this disease. There is no room for cold. There is no room for this." And the moment I kept saying that, like, even though if there is truly the feeling, it's there, right? Like the
Yes.
pain, it's there. The like my headache, it's there. It's
Right.
not that it's gone, but I kept saying it. And I'm one of those people that I usually avoid taking any medication. Like my family know me for that. So, like, I will fight the pain for 2 days. Like, if it goes 3 days, then if it's really
You're
getting heavy,
brave.
then I said it's okay. Let me just take a Tylenol just so that I can get it. But most of the time, like within a day, the moment I start saying there is no more pain, like I don't know, it's magical,
It,
to be honest. Like,
well,
and
eventually
I
it
never
catches up, right?
believed it. But you know what? Like, I never used to believe in this, to be honest. Like, I used to hear it a lot, and I never believed in it. Like, I thought people were lying to me, telling me it's true.
Yes. Yes.
Like, I felt that they were not being honest with me. And I would say, like, why are they lying to me? Like, can they just say the truth? Like, I mean, if I have a headache, I have a headache,
Right.
period. Like,
And
but
somebody's writing in here that we have to be responsible and conscious of our words, and you responsible and conscious of your words in spite of whatever's going on.
and that's what it is. And it's so true. Like, I think, and I strongly believe, like, in that, to be honest, like, the moment we are, like, whatever it's truly coming out of this tongue, like our tongue, it's a gate.
Yes. Actually, you're right. Yep.
Yeah, so it's the gate that opens, whether for good or bad.
Based on the way we feel. I just want to go back a little bit here, and I just want to rewind it to a point that Effie had made, that I want to touch upon. What what people fail to realize as they're going through this process and they're changing their internal dialogue is that you speaking very well about yourself and you learning how to love yourself and build yourself up from the inside, not looking at from the outside, you're not hurting anybody.
No, absolutely
Yeah.
not.
So why are we so afraid to work towards building yourself up every day to being that personal best, highest, greatest self that you are?
A lot
It
of the
doesn't hurt anybody.
I think people think that you're not being realistic. So it has to do a lot of it idealism versus realism. But it's really not that. It's not that you're saying, "Oh, I got in a car accident. I'm so happy." It is not a great thing that happened to you, but you can look at it from different perspectives. We have insurance. Nobody was hurt and everything is fixable. Not meaning that you're not disappointed about the accident or upset the fact that you had some type of accident, but you're grateful for how it ended up. So you can choose to see it in a negative way as an inconvenience, which it is, but it's a small inconvenience in comparison to what it could be. So for me, I choose to look at things in perspective of what the reality could be. So
Hmm.
in life, people are always like downing people who have some type of idealism versus realism. The reality check, everybody calls it reality check. Yes, it's great to have a reality check, but it doesn't have to be negative. The reality is, I say I have $500 and I need to buy 10 gifts. That's the reality. But ideally, I'm going to have enough to buy for 10 people,
And that's great. It's,
right?
it's somebody's just writing in here. Some people are afraid to change. What about if I really succeed? What reminds me of that as you're talking about realities is I love it when a lot of people say, "But that's my reality," and that's my reality. And we as Sophie, you put it, in the beginning, you didn't believe that there was power in the words and that thing would change. If you keep talking about something as being a reality in a negative way, we are creative beings. We are creating our realities. And
Absolutely.
what if we're so attached to the identity of that negative reality that we don't know how to operate outside of that reality? So, what if instead of saying that I'm creating a new reality, Sophie, Effie, as you said, with the whole car accident, it's changing perspective. And it's all a choice of what we choose to focus on. When we're not feeling good on the inside, the reality is, and here's the reality of when we're not feeling good on the inside is we are going to speak and create and focus only on those negative experiences and those bad experiences because it's actually just reflecting your soul of what you're feeling on the inside. That's going to come out in words. And by a simple shift, Effie, as you put it, where we're now focused on a new reality, a new perspective, it helps us feel good on the inside. And
Absolutely.
that's going to come out in our words. And
Absolutely.
from the law of attraction, or us being creators of our own reality, now we choose what type of experience, same event, but now we choose the type of experiences that are building on our future.
Totally
Yeah.
agree with you.
Talking about the change, you said people don't like to change. I always laugh about that, to be honest, because I always tell people I'm one of those people that I'm afraid if I don't change. I'm always afraid, like if there is any change that needs to take place, I'm always willing because I always say, what if there's something better than I know?
Well,
Then
somebody's
if I'm
writing
not
in, what about if
changing,
I succeed? What if I succeed, right?
exactly. I mean, if there is something and I've said no to it and I've stayed, like, I'm not afraid of change. It's the opposite. I'm willing to change. I'm
Okay.
afraid if I don't change.
Well, it's funny. Effie and I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, and I said to Effie, what happens if I reach my deathbed, and all of a sudden I could actually fast forward, and it would be like I would look back with regret that I didn't take those chances. I didn't like I could actually
Yeah.
see that. And Effie, I'm not sure if you remember that conversation. And I just said, now I'm moving over into Sophie's arena where it was like all of a sudden it was like, no, this is not going to be it. I'm actually going to say yes to change. I want to change because what if I succeed? What if there's a possibility? What if in a very progressive way?
Well,
What
change,
if?
I think change scares people because not because they're afraid of losing something. So they think when you say, "Oh, I'm going to change," oh, that means you're no longer here. That's not what changes. Changes is taking something that is within you for this particular experience and just making it a little bit better for you. Not necessarily you're not going to be the same person that picks up the phone and talks, but you're changing something about what you're doing, or you're making a change to better who you are and to benefit the people around you as well. Because as you change, your people around you are going to change, and you're going to attract more positive people around you as well. And even the people that perhaps may have been a little pessimistic about your change, but automatically say, hey, you know what, maybe I'm going to try to change, because they can
Right.
see you haven't lost you. You didn't go anywhere, you're still here.
Right. Absolutely. So it's interesting when you say it. When you say it from that perspective, I think to myself, I'm going to take it over to Sophie a little bit, where you mention about that the changing piece, where you want to change. You know, when you take change, or we change our internal dialogue, the way we speak about ourselves. Effie, you talked about speaking from a more powerful place on the inside. Guys, I say this in all my shows, this work is so much fun and it's an adventure, because it's about the curiosity of who you are capable of being in this world. It's fun, it's adventurous, it's exciting. And I use those words because that's how I feel personally in my spirit and the people I hang around. We think it's so cool when we find this new thing out about ourselves. We think it's so cool when we're like, all right, let's do this, let's change. It's so uncomfortable, because it is, but it's fun. Right?
That's
And
so true.
it's so amazing, right?
Yes. Like all of a sudden you're like, I never thought I could say that about myself. For years I was saying negative things about myself. And now all of a sudden I'm like, who am I? I don't even recognize me. It's kind of, it's amazing how we're not even, up until a certain point, like we were given our belief system, but up until a certain point, when you wake up and take responsibility that you don't have to own that belief system, so it's now a choice.
Yes.
All of a sudden it becomes, well, okay, well, I'm continuing this reality. But if I'm continuing this reality out of my own doing, gosh, we can create another new reality. It's up to us. Yes,
Absolutely.
it's hard to have dialogues with individuals, because if you created an environment where all your dialogue was negative, gossiping type dialogues, and you're working to do a different, it is going to be uncomfortable. How do you have a conversation? Right?
When it's
You know, talking about gossiping, you know, it's so funny that you mentioned that. In my life experience, I've never had people coming to me and gossip about anything. Like
And
I've never had
I
that.
have. And
No, I truly, I've never had that, because, you know, and I will like, sometimes like people, if they want to say something, for example, they'll be wanting to talk, but I don't know if is it that I give them that look that I'm not interested in that? Like, I don't know.
and you
For
shut it
me, like,
down.
I don't even say anything, right? But I've noticed like many things I've experienced that things would have happened and everybody would have known about it, and I would be the only one that I would have not even heard anything about it, like zero. And I would think to myself, like, how could everybody know about it but me? Like, I would be thinking, like, is there something wrong with me that I don't know anything? But
right.
then I start to realize, maybe because I'm not one of those people that I'm going and talking. And you know, what I was going to add actually, like, you know how we're saying about talking the positive and talking about the changing and all of that. I think it's most important, it's do it in a humble way, in a right way, meaning that, you know what, I'm not doing it because I'm worried about what others have to think about me, or I'm not worried about what others can think. I'm doing it just because I need to feel the peace, the happiness internally.
Mhm.
Like, you know, it's more internal. It's not much of external. Like, once I take care of my internal, then that will automatically just show up. Like, you know, it's like a car. I think, like, you take care of the car, the internal, like, the car will remain nice and new, even though
Right,
if the car
right.
might still be like an old car, but if you have maintained it well, it will look good. Or you can have vice versa, you can have a brand new car, but you may not have taken good care of the internal. The car might be very new, but it will look so old.
Right, right. I
So
agree.
yeah, like, isn't it much about thinking about others? Like, do it for yourself and do it in a humble way, and do it so that you can be a testimonial for others, that you can help other people. Like, you know, I mean, it's not easy, like I said, but then What if I will be talking to someone and they'll be telling me certain thing, and I will say, you know what, it's okay, I understand because I was like you. So do it in a more like a touching, or like more like wanting to help others. It isn't much like you're working on you, working on your words that comes out of your mouth, but isn't it much just for you? It's much more likely how you can change you and help someone else that has gone through maybe some of similar things like you, so that they can become better.
Right.
I always say to lead by example, right? And
Yes.
it is with my kids too. I'm like, I'm always so kind. I'm always generous. I'm always driving them around. And then when I'm not feeling well, and I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling well. Is someone going to get me an Alva? And they look at me, well, I can't. I'm doing this. I'm like, haven't you learned by my example yet? But I think it over time with children, eventually they catch
They
on.
catch up.
Yeah, they do. And that's why I always should try to lead by example with my kids, always being giving and kind to myself and to others around me. I think for years I wasn't kind to myself. So I thought my children thought I didn't need anything. So they felt that it was okay not to be kind to me. But as soon as I started treating myself and all making myself a little bit of a priority, they started to value me a little differently.
And that's very powerful, especially for moms. I don't know why, I'm going to make this comment on live TV, and I hope it, doesn't come back to bite me. But, for some reason, it just, males seem to get away with it a little bit easier. I don't know why. But as a woman, I remember the realization, Effie, as you're talking about children and your kids, I remember listening to my children talk to themselves. And, I was like, where are they getting this dialogue from? Like, they not see their beautiful, most powerful self? Do they not see how great they are? And I realized what, like, my light bulb moment as I was doing my own internal work, they were only speaking and reflecting me. And I was like, oh my goodness. And here it was, I thought I was leading by a great example.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't. And I knew when I did the work, I knew that I had a very unhealthy internal dialogue. And that obviously what I thought and what was, as you call it, reality, it just didn't match. And it was coming through in the dialogue they were having. And
I mean,
that really, it motivated me.
yes, absolutely. And for me, like recently, like in the past few years, there's been some situations, and I felt like I dealt with them the way that I should have. And then it came back a similar situation that kind of reincarnated itself into my kid, who was going through the same thing that I went through and was actually dealing with it how I dealt with it. And it was like, no, this is so wrong. And then I'm like, oh my God, she's reflecting my behavior. So then I said, okay, I need to get a voice and I need to speak for myself in order for her to understand that, reflect. And then I said, this is where I'm not leading by example. I'm doing the things that I think I'm supposed to say, that, oh, you're beautiful, oh, you're amazing, you can do it, you got this. But I wasn't actually living that for her. So she saw me walk away, she saw me not fight for things. And then when it started happening to her, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't raise this child, I raised a fighter. But actually she was actually mimicking me. And that was a huge moment for me where I realized, you know what? It's not just about saying it. It's not about just saying I'm doing it. You actually have to really do it and feel it and believe it. And not be uncomfortable with what you're doing at certain points, because that's how you know it's working. So when I'm telling you how I feel about something, for me, that's huge. Because for years, I'd say, I don't care. Sure, whatever. So the minute I start saying, no, it's not whatever. No, I want this. Or no, this should have been handled like that. That's when I said, okay, you know what? It's the self-talk. That's not only am I saying to myself, oh, you're so great, Effie, every day. I have to put the work out there. It's not about just saying, oh, you're amazing or this. You actually have to follow through in your real life.
Mm-hmm. And it starts with the seed, though, from the moment of, Sophie, when you say that you started to change your narrative on the inside, even though the reality wasn't showing up yet, but it was a seed, and you had to water that thought. You had to water that feeling. You had to water those words. Like, you had to be consistent for it to appear. And it's like a muscle that you're developing. And for that muscle to get nice and strong and to take shape and form, it takes time. So
because they come in pieces,
right? And there's hurdles along the way too, because I'm sure with that knee, or Effie, as you were going through those changes, as you were changing your dialogue to and your actions so that your kids would see it, I'm sure it came with its challenges along the way. So it was easy to just abandon all that work that you had done up to that moment and go back into whatever it was that you were in, right? So it took a lot of awareness, I'm sure, for the both of you.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah. It doesn't happen overnight, to be honest. And it's like, you know what? I think it all starts with wanting to change, because the moment we get a want to change, then it seems the information starts coming to us, but they come in
Yes.
pieces, like in a slow pieces. I always think it's like we are newborn baby, like, when a newborn baby it's born, you just have to give them a little bit of milk, and slowly you increase.
Right.
So same thing with us, to be honest. Like all of this testimonial, it didn't happen overnight. Like it took years, to be honest, until it
Mm-hmm.
happened. but
And aren't
but
our
then
kids our greatest motivators to make it happen?
Absolutely.
Because when you see your mirror reflection in them, you're like, oh.
But you know
Yeah.
what? At that moment, it's like it's taking forever. Like you're thinking, oh my God, like why am I not seeing the real
Right.
results? Like, how come this is taking forever? But then as the time goes by and the changes are happening so slowly, like they're happening so slowly that at one point you look back and you say, well, I made it. And it's like it's the greatest feeling, to be honest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It reminds me of cooking because I spent years in the kitchen. And people are like, oh, you do it so efficiently. And I'm like, yeah, you would too if you spent 8 hours a day.
Yes, exactly. I definitely don't spend 8 hours a day in the
Right.
kitchen.
And Effie and I go way back, so you know how many hours.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I can take those 8 hours and knock it off in two. So,
Yeah, exactly.
but yeah, so it's just the way we speak to ourselves. For me personally, I always think it starts out with the feeling. So I always ask myself, what am I feeling? If I'm not feeling good about myself, and there are a lot of times, I don't know about the two of you, but there are many moments in my life where I swore up and down that I felt good on the inside about myself, and nobody could tell me otherwise. And I was very guarded with that concept that no, I felt really good. Everything was fine. But the truth of it, when I really dug deep and I really started to face a lot of truths within my soul, a quite different feeling started to emerge. And in the belly of who I wasn't feeling as good about myself as I thought I was. And that was the unconscious mind, if you want to call it. I was living from that space, and those were the results showing up in my life. And I couldn't understand why, because I was like, well, no. My subconscious mind is clean. My feelings are good. you know? And then,
Why isn't it working?
yeah, well, like, what's the problem? And
Yeah.
when you really start to open up and take another layer on, all of us, or go deeper, another layer deeper, and peel that onion, another layer of the onion back. All of a sudden you realize, oh, there's some stuff that needs a little bit of work.
But that's going back, Tanya, but that is basically going back to what you are truly saying to yourself, though, right?
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
So
what you
it's going back to the power of our words, right?
absolutely.
Like many times, for example, I'll be feeling sad, but then what comes out of my mouth, it would be like, why am I feeling sad? And I try to change it. Like instantly I said, you know what? I'm happy. I'm in peace. Like, I start saying those words. Like, I remember, like, it was just last week. I don't even know what happened, to be honest. But for whatever reason, like, it seems it came a moment, like, I was like, throughout the day, it came a moment, I just felt like something very heavy on my chest. And I'm thinking, like, I had hard time breathing and I was feeling sad. And I kept thinking, like, why am I even sad? And then after I was done, like at the end of the day, I kept like, it's so funny. Like I was going back to my old self because I kept telling my family, oh, I'm sad today. And the more I was saying it, I was feeling it. But then at one point, I went to my son and I said, he goes, Mama, what's wrong with you? I said, you know what? No, nothing wrong with me. I'm very happy today. Like,
Right.
and
And,
it's
and
so,
sometimes it's hard to, and I don't know if any of you have experienced this, and I can only speak for myself where there were moments in my life that I wanted to be excited and happy about my life. And there was a lot in my life to be happy about, definitely. And I couldn't get myself to actually surrender to the feeling. It was like there was a fear of if I'm happy, something will go wrong. If it's too good, like it was almost too good to be true. So to keep myself safe, it was almost better to stay over in the unhappiness of it, just in case something happened. Um, and I don't know if ever when something's going so good, you don't want to jinx it. Right?
Well, it's culturally, right? Like in a lot of cultures, they say to you, stop laughing, something bad's going to happen. You're
Right.
too happy, mixing it. But like my growing up, my mom was like, "I don't tell it, don't say it because you say it, something bad, but it's a good thing, right?" And my mom would be like, "Happy, what much? I'm gonna be crying tears." I'm like, "Hey, I'm happy. I guess if I'm too happy, we're gonna be crying." So that conditions you. And I remember even to this day, like today, where I felt anxious. There's nothing anxious about it. So just to kind of talk yourself back, replay good things to get yourself away from that anxiety.
Right, right. And it's so true. And when you finally, I'm not for anybody out there listening that can relate to this, it's not hard and it's not easy. It's just there's a resistance. Like it's just like jumping into the pool of cold water. It's just giving you like saying, okay, that's it, I'm gonna do it. It's gonna be cold for a minute and then your body eventually adjusts to the temperature of the water. That's the best analogy I can give of it. It's like all of a sudden you're jumping into the pool of happiness and it's like, oh my gosh. And at first you're like, ooh, and then all of a sudden you adjust to it and you're like, you don't even want to get out. When you get in the pool and then you don't want to get out of the water. It's kind of like that. Right? So it's quite amazing. I think we just lost Effie there. I think she just dropped off for a minute and hopefully she'll come back on in a second here. But yeah, so it's so, I like the way that Sophie, that you put it, when you really become more aware and intentional with, we've got her coming back on here, and you're very intentional about how you're going to choose moving forward to reshape and create your reality just based on your words, which changes the way you feel, which changes a lot of things. And even though the people around you may not have changed, you're not going to let that interfere with the conversation that you're having on the inside with yourself. All the wonderful conversations, because Sophie and I talk on the outside, she'll be like, I feel powerful today. Or, like you have a really healthy internal dialogue with yourself.
well, it's a work in process, right? So
Yes.
Amazing energy.
Yes, I think we lose you on video there, huh? Yeah.
Am I not on video anymore?
No, you look like you're off. So yeah, sorry.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can hear you. There we
Obviously.
go. And now you're on mute.
Okay.
There you go. We're all good now. Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah,
guys.
that's okay.
I have construction in my house, so I think like periodically they do something to the Wi-Fi downstairs.
Oh, it's all good. So this is real life, real talk, real issues, real people. Right?
Yeah.
real, it's great.
Right,
Real, it's
right.
great.
It's perfect. So
Yeah.
let's share with the audience just what are some of the things that they can do to change. I want to hear from both of you. Leffie, we'll start with you. What do you think some people, there's something that people can do to start to change the way they talk to themselves on the inside? That saying out there that be careful how you speak to yourself because you're listening. And no one else, because nobody else is having that conversation on the inside but you. What are some of the things people can do to have a healthier conversation on the inside?
Well, I feel for myself, what helped me a lot was to identify what the keywords that I was using for myself when I was talking to myself. So I started to write them down. So I kept like on my iPhone and like a little note in your note section, or if you have like another type of phone, I'm sure you can jot something down. And every time I would say to myself, oh my God, I can't, I'd put like a tick mark, I can't. So I would, at the end of the day, I could like look and see how many times I said, I can't do this, or don't do this to myself, or, oh my God, how could you be so stupid? And, or what's wrong with you? Like, so like stuff like that, that I was saying to myself internally, whether I was saying it in my head or out loud, I started to kind of keep track of that. And then I said to myself, I've spoken to myself, oh my God, I would never say this to anyone. I would never even say it to a stranger. Like, why am I speaking to myself this way? So what I did was I said, well, how can I change this? How can I replace those words with words that will help me get to what I need to do? So I started to replace things like with I can't as, okay, this is challenging. You know, what solutions am I going to find, put into place? How can I problem solve this? Okay, so I feel that it's not working for me to do this. Well, I'm going to try a different route. So I started to change my wording and my thought process. And let me tell you, it was difficult because at times I'd be like, stop, and people would be like, oh, what's she doing? And I'd be like, okay, rethinking how I was going to say it to myself, so how it would verbally come out. So it took a lot of practice and a lot of work, and I'm still working on it. And I still do track that. And I do wake up every morning and I say to myself, today is going to be an amazing day. Whatever happens, I'm going to deal with it and I'm going to be great. So that kind of sets my prelude to the morning. So if I come down and my kids are fighting, it doesn't ruin the entire day. I'm like, girls, you know, let's break it up. Let's go. We don't have time for this. We don't engage. We move
Right.
on. So that's kind of what I started to do, and where I started to get myself on that track. And as if I changed what I thought, things around me began to change.
It's interesting. I like the way that you paralleled it, where you actually intentionally took inventory with how you were and capturing what you were thinking on the inside. And you were able to sit back and reflect in a day of how all those moments, like, you know, if you were to give yourself a quarter for all those times that you had an unhealthy conversation with yourself in a day. So if you were able to track that, can you imagine now times that over how many years that you've been alive of,
Yes.
of nurturing that kind of talk?
Yes.
You know, it's, and how many of us do it? So I think that that's a very, very powerful exercise for individuals to grab a book and just start to take inventory, take note, and jot down those moments where they're catching themselves having that unhealthy dialogue, that negative conversation on the inside, that put down defeating kind of conversation on the inside, and then look to do the polar opposite and to create something different. And I think that that's powerful what you did, you know, being a problem solver, solution finder, and shaping that. And yes, it's got its challenges along the way, but what you're now doing is changing the narrative, changing your reality, changing the experience. So you're actually taking control, being accountable and being responsible. So I think that's phenomenal.
Yes, a control of myself and how I choose to say and see things. And you know what? People will realize that about you. Like once you start to change it, people will notice and people will see you different. You'll present a different energy, a different aura about yourself because you're no longer putting yourself down. You'll stand up a little straighter. You'll look a little different because you're feeling a little bit better.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. And Sophie, what can you share with them?
For me, it's very simple. I'm very simple, actually. I don't like to complicate things. So for me, it's all, like if I have to give a piece of advice, but I'm not nobody to give that piece of advice anyway.
Amazing.
I'm very simple, and I tell like just be like a child. We have a menu, to be honest. We have a menu that we can grab from everything and anything. But I always say, like, be like a children. Like a child don't think, they just do, you know? Children always want to be happy, you know? Children, like, even though if they have an accident, like it seconds, it doesn't last, to be honest. Like it's like if they fell and they hurt themselves, they cry just for seconds and then they're back and happy. So I'm very simple, very clean. Like, you know what? Whatever it is, just like as long as you within your own thought, like nothing can stop you to be good or happy, and just within your own way, like in your own thought and tongue, like underneath your breath. Underneath your breath, keep on talking to yourself in the right way. You don't
Yes.
have to say it loud enough. Like just underneath your breath, just keep saying what is right to you, and just be like a child, to be honest. Like don't overthink of anything. Like don't, because it's not worth it. Like I don't know. For me, like I've heard that a lot of people tell me, Sophie, you're such a careless. And I said, it's not that I'm careless. I choose not to think about anything. So, you
Right,
know,
right, right.
it isn't much about being careless or anything. It's more about I choose to be like a child. And I always joke about it. I said to people, I'm like a children, to be honest. I'm a child. Like, you know what? Like anything that happened to me or happened in my life, I don't overthink about it. And
Amazing.
underneath my breath, I keep on saying the right words in my head, on my tongue, like even though I'm not saying it loud enough, but I'm saying it internally. And I think that what truly helps. Like I don't think about it over and over, or how should I do it, or what does it need, or what is the right way, or I don't go extra mile on terms of thinking.
Hmm.
It's more about taking the action slowly and just act on it.
I also think it's the emotion we attach to word. So when you hear the word selfish, right? You don't
Hmm.
think of that as a good word. That's a bad word. Who wants to be with a selfish person? But being selfish is also putting your mask on first to help everyone else. Doesn't mean that you're not going to help everyone or give, or you're only looking to give for yourself. Because for years, I'm like, I can't be selfish. I can't do this for me. But I started to attach a different emotion to being selfish or confident. Oh, that means you're pompous. I don't want to be a bragger. I don't want to brag. And people can see it. But so I wouldn't do that. And then I thought, hold on a sec, I'm going to attach different emotions to these words. And then I'm going to change how I see them. And then they become more of a priority or a way of acting because you've attached a positive emotion to the word. I mean, that's what really was a big eye opener for me is changing the words that I associated with bad behavior. And they were not really bad words. It was just emotions for me that I had attached to.
We're triggered, right?
Yeah,
Like blue
exactly.
means something different to you than it will be to Sophie than it is to me,
Absolutely.
right? It's
Absolutely.
just it's getting to that. It's understanding that, and that is powerful. Um, so walk me through something that people can do the first thing they get up and the first thing when they and the last thing they do before they go to bed, just to be more intentional about how they're framing. I'm going to take it into the subconscious mind about how they can change that, and change that feeling on the inside in order to create a healthier dialogue. Sophie, let's give that over to you.
I personally, as soon
I
as
know you're simple.
I start with prayers and I end up my days with prayers. That's how I do it. Like as soon as I open my eye, like, sometimes we are awake, but we're like my eyes are open, but my mind is still asleep.
Yes, yes. You're in that dreamy state.
Yeah, like I'm trying to pray, but at the same time, I'm thinking, like, am I really awake? Is it the time for me to pray? But like, even though I'm still asleep, but my mouth, it's praying. Like I'm already praying, like, and even when I sleep, like, as soon as I sleep, I end my days by praying as well. And I think for me personally, prayers had helped me a lot because there are so many things that I did learn by praying. To be honest, that's just me personally.
Mm-hmm.
So praying, it helps in a big, big way because there are so many things that I didn't know, like I would never pray before, to be honest. And it would
A
be
lot of
just
people
like,
don't know how to pray. It's amazing that I've spoken to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't know how to.
But
Right.
praise, it could be just a simple thing. Like, I mean, for me, I read, like, I have something every morning, as like before I get off the bed, like I have a message that my friend sent me on the phone. Like, as soon as I'm done my prayer while my eyes are closed, then I grab my phone and I just read that. Like it's something good that I have to input, because, like we say, conscious mind, subconscious, and that's what's attached to the body. So if I'm starting my conscious mind with positive, then the subconscious, most likely it's empty. So I'm already adding my positive into my subconscious. And that, since it's attached to my body, then my body will act toward what I have first put into my mind. So I always say, like, and as soon as I'm done that, then I start listening to something powerful, right? I listen a lot to, for example, Jim Rohn. It's one of the people that I listen to a lot. So I start listening to something positive. And so basically, like from the starting day, I'm feeding myself all positive.
Yeah.
So therefore, like if I'm feeding myself, and if I have, like for me personally, I haven't watched TV for the past 22 years now. I don't even know what the TV is.
Well, God bless you, because that ain't me.
Like I mean, sometimes people, and especially my sister, she goes to me like, "How could you not be watching TV?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Like, and I mean, I hear the news here and there from people, or a little bit of internet, but I never watch TV or anything like that. So technically speaking, like I'm every day working on me on what do I feed myself. That's as simple
Good.
as it can be."
All right. Well, thank you. And if we got about a minute for you to share what you
Sure.
think that somebody could do.
I believe in prayer, of course. Pray in the morning, thank God, or whoever, whatever your belief is, whoever you choose to thank, and be grateful. But I also believe in meditation. And I find
Mhm.
for me that's very helpful. And especially in the beginning, like guided meditations. So then I just like, oh, how do I, I started Googling things. And that's why I eventually just discovered like, stay positive, change your thoughts, change your words, like that, like 2 3 or 5 minutes in the morning of a guided meditation, and it just gets your brain thinking a certain way. And then when you before bed, obviously if you choose to pray or whatever, that doesn't ever have to change, but like a nice meditation before bed, putting those private thoughts in your brain, it keeps your brain in that level when you wake up in the morning. So that's kind of my little 2 bits on it. It's very simple, it's not long. You can Google information, you can find those. And I find it very helpful to keep me steady in my day.
Nice. Nice. Well, thank you for sharing that. So I just want to kind of blend the two together and just say that, prayer for me, when people said they didn't know how to pray, it was just you were praying constantly in our thoughts. Anything that you're focused on for a prolonged period of time is prayer. So, fusing between the meditation and the prayer, and it's really that focused thought and what we're feeding ourselves with, you're both in the same way are incorporating very positive things before you as soon as you wake up and before you go to bed. So that's the first thing, setting out your day, and the last thing you're going to sleep with at night. I like music as well. I find that sometimes when you put some really happy music on, it takes you to a good feeling. It changes a lot of the emotions. It changes the energetic sphere within your body that it extends outwards. So all those three combine together, and you guys are armored out there, all right, with how you can change the internal dialogue within your life. I want to thank our guests for being here this evening, Sophie and Effie, for joining us to have our conversation on the way we speak to ourselves. It was fun. It was nice. It was a pleasure and an honor, as always. I'd like everybody to join us on this Wednesday, where we would be extending this conversation on the power of your words, where we will have joining with us Shamina Jaraj and Neelam Herji. So that'll be another extension of today's powerful conversation. If you are looking for breakthrough conversations that will help clear the path for you to get to the next level of your life, please visit TanyaRicketts.com to get started. And I'd be more than happy to get you guys to the next level in some dynamic conversations. Also, please follow us on Facebook and on Instagram under Tanya Talks 4. Like us and share as well, and subscribe. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thanking our guests.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you all on Wednesday. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.